Welcome back to another session on the rhythms of Ecclesia. And in this conversation, we're going to drop in on what does it mean to serve others? And I got to say, it's going to start a little differently than some of the others because you're going to get to hear a really open and honest and vulnerable question from Riley, and it gets the conversation going. But part of what I love about this idea of serve others is that it really helps us be rooted in humility. And it means that in serving others, we actually get to practice doing the humble thing where we show up for other people and do the thing that maybe isn't gonna get a lot of notoriety. It's not flashy, but they are just practical things that we can show up and serve people in tangible ways. And we do this because Jesus invited us to do that. And so let's just jump into the conversation on what it means to serve others.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about serve others. And the first thought for me is like, what is the difference between us being hospitable, being kind? Like these start to blend a little bit. So yeah, where do we want to, I guess, lean the conversation?
Yeah, I think for me, being hospitable is much more of an orientation toward others in the world, and serve others is more of a practice. Like that's the great thing about it being a rhythm, is that there are times where all of us, and I've even asked myself this very recently, is like, where am I actually like showing up as physical hands and feet? Like, versus, oh, that's a good thing that's happening. Or whether it's like Harmony House or the shower days, there should be some place that I can look at on my calendar and in my bank account that reveals to me that I'm serving others. In a tangible, like you said, embodied way. And it's really hard for many of us to serve our coworkers and clients because the need is often just not there in the same way. That doesn't mean that there aren't places and people we can serve in those sectors of our lives. But it's a reminder, like I need to find space to be of like gritty, real world, hands in the dirt use for other people. And so it's never an either or, right? But it's an invitation to do both. And that's one of the ways that Jesus invites us to live out the kingdom, is with the least of these. And when I hear serve others, I hear a hearkening back specifically to that command to serve and love the least and the lost, because Jesus doesn't try to pretend, right, that the world is equal or fair in terms of the distribution of resources. And so what we do is that we serve in the ways and the people that Jesus served. And so Jesus spends his time with people that everyone else has forgotten, overlooked. Like the story of the man at the pool who's been there for 38 years. He can't get into the water, right? Because someone else always beats him into it. And I think how many times has everyone else has just walked over this man? In 38 years, no one has said, hey, how about the next time the waters are stirred, we put this guy here in, he's been here for 38 years. And I think that's part of what Jesus means when he says like that he is the way, this is the way that we enter into the world. I think that for me is what serve others looks like.
Yeah. And it's very much like wanting to be active and involved and not just text somebody when they're going through a hard time or in the hospital, but to be the person who actually shows up at the hospital room, or like a friend who's had a tree that fell like right in front of their house yesterday. And then I had plenty going on. We were celebrating the birthday of my son, which will date this recording, all that kind of stuff. But like to see then pictures later of like, oh no, like there were just folks who showed up at their house and got chainsaws out and cut it up. And to have this sense of like, oh, I missed that, like I could have shown up and been that for that friend, I think that's part of the idea of like serve others means you actually show up for people and that there's still stuff to do, I think
also like just as the people of God, like serving is our responsibility. I think there's a reason why Jesus asked us to walk on this path, and those reasons are like, there's a million. But one of the key ones is it actually changes us. Like, we need to serve to be formed into the image of Christ.
Yes.
Like, this is like not just something we do, because it's nice and good, or even just because it brings real practical change in the world. Like, it does that, and that's like a part of the call. But also, it's like we as the church are responsible for serving and going out of our way for other people, and responsible for it because this is our like becoming more like him.
Yeah.
And him, like, how often is it that you serve somebody and it actually impacts you, or it changes you, or it forces you to shift your perspective or something? So it's necessary. And the times when I have done that, it's like, man, that's Jesus really showed up in me and others. So it's huge.
And Riley, I'm also sort of mindful of the people who have oriented their career around serving others. Like we have so many like medical professionals and healthcare professionals and people who said, like, even with my 8 to 5, 9 to 5 job, like, I want that to be about serving others. And I would never, especially for younger people, like looking for vocation, I would want to always hold that out as a legitimate opportunity, right? To live that out, to say, like, you know what, I could go into X career that's going to generate a certain amount of income. And it's not that people shouldn't do that, but there are other folks who feel and sense like, no, God said, like, I do need to go teach. I do need to be a medical provider. I want to serve people in this particular way because I've been given this skill set. And that too is a legitimate way of being in the world to serve others. And so the great thing about that rhythm, about this rhythm, is that there is no lack of need in the world. And so wherever you are, not to give yourself a pat on the back or give yourself an excuse, but for most people, finding a place and a people to serve could be done in about 45 minutes. Like, there's just no way, there's no person, no direction you could go and you wouldn't find a place where there's need.
Yeah, I mean, it could be in your own home or your next door neighbor. It's easy for me to have like when we start to have conversations like this, to have a fantasy of like, oh, I'll like look into some, I don't know, nonprofit or something, and really shift like in a big way towards some of these invitations. But I think starting small is a good place to look towards, to start to be disciplined with, is like the neighbor or the grocery store person or whatever it is.
Rochelle won't mention this, so I'll mention it for her, is that just over the last, several years, they're kind of like on their own, sometimes like in pairs. There are several young women who, for their own reasons, have sought her out for some sort of mentoring type relationship. And no person gets older in life and thinks, you know what I want to do? I want to mentor younger people because I think I've got it all together. Right? Like no one's that, well, I'm sure someone is. Very few people are that arrogant. Yeah. But God's arranged things in the last few ways, like for her, where in our home, like over coffee and lots of different places, that she is spending time with them on their schedule, in their own pace. I'm just talking and sharing like life. And I've literally come home before and just like stacks of like clothes from department store been there. And Rochelle said, well, that's for so-and-so because like we're like helping them like up their, like get a job, resume building, going to work in the real world wardrobe. Yeah. And I'm mindful. Well, I say that because one, she wouldn't. And like those kinds of relationships would also, I think it's helpful for us to keep our eye out for the ways that God is bringing service to us, because it doesn't always have to be follow the QR code on the wall for an opportunity to serve. Those are excellent ways to serve, and we'll always have and need those. But it might well be for a number of people that the opportunities are right in front of us, and we are resisting those or hesitant because it doesn't look like or feel like service.
Yeah.
But it actually is deeply profound and shaping for other people.
So I was just going to say, which kind of goes along with some things that Sean mentioned, but that I think sometimes the opportunity to serve is right in front of us, and we talk ourselves out of it. So going ahead and doing something that may seem bold or weird culturally, or may seem strange. Like, I think you have to be willing to say, hey, like, this might be overstepping, but I went ahead and did this. And so, and kind of having an openness and in a way, kind of counting on other people to be hospitable too, right? Kind of that idea of assuming goodness in others. Service is about the other person and their needs, not about what I think they need.
Yeah.
And that's been a big lesson for me in kind of adulthood, is that the goal of service is not to try to make everyone's life look more like mine, but to really say, like, what does this person need in their context, and what can be the most helpful? And then adjusting my resources to fit that need, to fit the need. And it's not a practice of trying to get people to assimilate to a certain practice, a certain lifestyle. It's really saying, what is this person's perceived need, and how can I step into that? I think that's an important part of service. I also think an important part of service is, which has been really violated in this moment, is secrecy.
Yeah.
That I think we undervalue that. I think we have so many, just desires to be seen and to be known. And we want people to think highly of us, and we want for people to like us. And one way we can do that is to sometimes like give our kind of spiritual resume of the things that we're doing. And I think so often, real beauty and real growth come from, I'm going to do this, and the only other person who might know about it is the person on the receiving end. And that really is like a part of this practice, is that I am doing this because this is who I want to be, and because I see God's image in you, and I want to honor that.
Honestly, even just hearing you guys talk about it, I feel really inspired of how do we continue to do this more, and encouraged too to even continue to invite people into this, like you've said, of this. We don't serve once we've got it all figured out. This is actually part of what it means to follow Jesus, and a part of the path. And so I'm hopeful and excited to hear what this triggers for lots of people in the community. Who knows? Like, hopefully we also don't hear about some things that people end up doing too. So, but
I'm pretty
grateful.
positive we already don't hear about
most of it. Yeah. Which is beautiful. So, yeah. Thanks for a really great conversation. So, Ecclesia, as we wrap up the conversation on serving others, I hope it opens your eyes a little bit and gives you a little bit of encouragement to take a small step, whether that's going to the local school right down the street from your house, or asking a neighbor about something that's going on in their yard. There's a million different ways you can do this, but our hope is that you take the time to actually find those really simple, tangible ways to serve others, and that it hits home for you that this is so central to what it means to follow Jesus. That Jesus himself served us, he served his disciples, and he invited us to do the exact same thing. And so what we know and trust is that as we serve Jesus, as we serve the least of these, we get to offer a gift to the people, but there's something that it does in us, that it changes us and transforms us, and it will make us more like Jesus. It will make us more like God. And so, Ecclesia, may you find that as you step into these conversations with others, and may you be transformed as you find ways to serve the world.